Okay, so you guys may remember that the projector wasn't working when I was trying to show you guys how to use the graphical equation editor to do your homework. So I thought, well, maybe I should do that in a video here and post it. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. Let's see. All right. So what you should be looking at right now is the Folio page here, and I'll show you how to access the homeworks. We go to assessments, and we go to quizzes, and there's our first homework assignment right there. So now that we have that homework assignment, let's go ahead and click on it. For you guys, if you click on it, it'll open up the quiz. For me, I have to go to preview because I'm an instructor. Okay, but you guys should just be able to click on it and you get to the same page here. I'll go to start quiz. And we can look at the first problem over here. It says to construct a table of values for f of xy equals x times y plus x times y bar. Then construct a table of values for f of xy equals x. Is it true that x times y plus x times y bar is equal to x, y, or y not? So basically, I am just trying to show that these two things are equal to each other or that they're not equal to each other using a table of values, just like we did in class. Okay, so how do I do that with Folio? There's this plus button over here. If you click on it, there's a whole bunch of other options, and one of them is table. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a table, and I'm going to insert a table, and I have to give it the dimensions. Right now, I really don't know how many columns I'm going to need, so let's just max out the number of columns. I do know right away how many rows I'm going to need, though, because my function only involves x and y, right? That means I'm going to have 4 different input options. So then I'm going to create one row for just the headers for my columns, X and Y and so on. And then I'm going to have 4 more rows to take all possible input combinations. So there we go. Okay. Now my first column there is going to be my first independent variable, which is going to be X. So I'm going to go to the plus sign again. I'm going to go to equation. And then I'm going to go to graphical equation here. Okay. And you see this window pops up. It's going to type an X in there, and I'm going to insert that. And there we go. There's a nice math X right there. Okay. Do the same thing for the second column, but use Y instead. So I'll go to equation, graphical equation, and then I wait. And then I can type in Y, insert that. All right, so good. So now I have my independent variables there. Now let's see what else I might need in order to get this left-hand side of the equation. Well, I need a y bar, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Equation, graphical equation. And think about the bar on top of the y, that's a decoration. So there's this decorations tab over here. You can click on that and it gives you some more options. And one of these boxes has a little bar on top of it. It says enclosed top if you hover over it. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to type in a y, and that gives me a nice y bar. Okay. All right, now I need an x times a y, and I need an x times a y bar. So let's go ahead and handle those 2 columns. So I'll go to equation, graphical equation, and I wait. And then now we have an x, and we have to do times. So if you go over here to symbols, I like to use this middle dot button, x times y. Go ahead and put that in there. And then now we'll do x times y bar as well. So I'll go to the next column. I'll go to plus equation, graphical equation, x, symbol, type times. And then we go to decoration, and we put a little box with a bar over the top of it. I'm going to do y bar. Okay, great. And then we're going to need x times y plus x times y bar. So this thing plus this thing. So I'll go to equation, graphical equation, and you guys know what to do. Do x, we go to symbol, we go to times, have a y plus x times, and then we got to do decorations and do a closed top, y bar, and then we insert that. Okay, and that's really all the columns we need, because here's my column for the left-hand side of the equation, and then here's my column for the right-hand side of the equation, just x, right? Yeah, so these other columns I don't really need. So if you go down here, you can see there's a delete column button. let's go to the first empty column and just delete it, delete it, delete it, and that takes care of all those columns. Okay. If you forgot like a column or something, you said, oh no, I forgot to do my Y bar, you can insert a column before or after any other column. So if I click the insert column after this one, you can see it gives me a new blank column over there, right? I'll go ahead and delete that column now. We don't really need it. Okay. Okay. And you can also do the same thing with rows. You see the add row before, add row after, delete row. Okay. So now let's go ahead and fill out my chart. Remember, no thought needs to go into this independent variable here. Y goes 0, 1, 0, 1. Okay. X goes 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay, I should be able to fill that out very quickly. Y bar is the opposite of Y, right? It's the complement of Y. So we're going to get a 1, a 0, a 1, a 0. Okay. X times Y is just these first two columns multiplied together. So I'm going to get a 0, a 0, a 0, and a 1. Okay. And you can see like this thing kind of getting in my way. If I click this button, it'll go to full screen, which, this is just going to be a little bit easier to edit. Okay. Now, X times Y bar is going to be this first column times this third column. We're going to get a 0, a 0, a 1, and a 0 from that. And then now we just add these two columns together. 0, 0, 1, 1. And you can see that this first column that we have here is the same as this fourth column as we have over here, right? So I'll kind of say something to that effect. I'll say, therefore, since the first column, I can spell, since the first column is the same as the last column, they are equal as Boolean functions. Okay, and that's all we were trying to show there, right? So we're done with that problem. Okay. Now we can go on to the second one over here, where we're doing the exact same problem, but we're trying to show that this is true using Boolean identities, so that this is equal to that using Boolean identities. Let's see how we can do that. Okay. So again, I go to the plus sign, go to equation, go to graphical equation here. Okay. And then now I'm going to type in my left-hand side over here. So we have an x times a y plus x times a y bar. So I got to go to decorations, get the bar thing, y bar. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and insert that in there. That's the left-hand side of my equation. Oops, I did not mean to close that. Yeah, so that's the left-hand side of my equation. Okay. Now I'm just going to stay within this window here. Okay. And then I'm going to just press enter to get a new line, equal sign there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out an x from this. Just like in college algebra, I have a common factor of x in both these terms. So I should get that this is the same thing as x times, in parentheses, y plus, and we'll do the decorations tab, do the enclosed top, y bar. Okay. There we go, outside there. Okay, so good. So I factored out an x. Okay. Now there's not really, well, okay, I'll say it this way. In college algebra, when you're doing factoring, what you're really doing is you're using distributivity in reverse, right? So if we look at the second line over here, x times y plus y bar, the distributive property tells us this is x times y plus x times y bar, the thing that we started with. So all I've done to get from my first line to my second line is just to use the distributive law. Distributive law or distributive property. Okay. So I want to say which identity I'm using as I use it. So I've gotten to that second line by using the distributive property in reverse. Okay. All right. So good. I'm going to do the same thing on the second line, right? So I have x times, and then I have, this is just equal to 1. Y plus y bar is 1. All right. What property did I use there? Well, if you look back at your list of the different Boolean identities that we went over in class, right, y plus y bar is equal to 1. That's just the unit property. And the unit property, if you take a variable plus its complement, it's always equal to 1. Okay, because either y is 1, in which case the whole thing is 1, or y bar is 1, in which case the whole thing is 1. Okay. All right, and then x times 1 is equal to x, right? Well, that's just your identity property. Or identity law, I guess what they were calling that one. But I don't care if you call it a property or a law. Okay. There we have it, and that's all the work you need to show for that one. Okay, ta-da. So that's it for question 2. Now we'll go on to question 3 here, and we're taking the dual of this, right? So maybe I'll start off by just typing this whole thing in. So I'll go to equation and graphical equation here. Okay, there's not a whole lot of work to show for this one. It's going to be like 2 lines tops. Right? So if I just copy down what I have here for the function, or sorry, for the equation, y plus 0 equals x plus 1 times y. Okay. And then now remember that when we take the dual, multiplication becomes addition, but we have to use parentheses to preserve my order of operations here. Because that multiplication was getting done before this addition, after I do my dual, I want to make sure that this addition gets done before this multiplication. Okay? So this multiplication turned into addition. I have parentheses around it. And then now this addition turns into multiplication. So I have times. And remember, zeros become ones. Okay. Okay. Same thing here. I now have an addition turning into a multiplication. Okay. And it's not wrong to put parentheses around it. Okay. And this multiplication becomes an addition. Okay. Oh, sorry. I wrote a y over here. X times 0 is what this should say. Your 1 becomes a 0, the plus becomes a time. There we go. It's not wrong to put parentheses around this, but it's also unnecessary because multiplication gets done before addition. Yeah. So when we're converting addition into multiplication, we can be less careful than if we were to convert multiplication into addition. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave the parentheses in there, though. I'll go ahead and insert this, and that's all the work that you need to show. So that's your first homework assignment, right? I just wanted to show you the different ways of using the features of the equation editor so that we could type up our math nicely. It's easier to grade. Yeah. All right. I'll go ahead and submit that one. All right. And that's it.